Hey YouTube, I'm Sergeant Indy, and this is Ninjectory. This is week 2 of Devtober, and this is another DevVlog. I'm going to get right in there because we got a lot to talk about, and first and foremost, there are 12 levels in the game now to accommodate some new missiles that I made. And so there's about 24 minutes of gameplay if I can manage to beat every level on the first try. Some of them were pretty hard. So first and foremost, my explosions have changed. I'm sure that's pretty noticeable. There's some color in them now. There's some like yellow to red particles that squirt out of them, right? What that is a particle system. And so this is my first time using particles. And I did it because during some of these chain reaction explosions, my instance count would get super duper high. Now, a lot of people freak out about their instance count. Really, GameMaker 2 is really stable, and so long as all those instances aren't like doing a bunch of stuff every step, if they're just doing whatever, right? GameMaker can handle thousands of instances, particularly if they either have no step event or that step event is virtually nothing. It can handle 2,000-3,000 easy. What GameMaker can't do, and what in fact like no game engine really can't do, is make a bunch of instances, right? Like handle 3,000, that's fine. Make 100 in a single step, that's a problem, because all of these instances, even if they're just like you don't do anything with them, you just make an instance, doesn't have a sprite, nothing, right? GameMaker instances have a lot of default variables. They've got an X position, a Y position, a depth. Even if you don't set a sprite, they have a sprite index. They have an image index. They have all of that. All the variables that you type into GameMaker and they come up green. All of that. And so allocating all of that memory is very taxing on any game engine, any computer. So switching over to particles and using a particle system theoretically should make my performance better. We got my FPS numbers in the top right. 60, 57, 49. First off, the GameMaker runner is just not as efficient as just running the game as an EXE. The numbers are better if I were running this as an EXE right now. But on top of that, they're not accurate. So my hit stop, right? That, and that, and that, right? All of that. How I'm doing that hit stop is I'm setting the room speed to 6. So normally it's 60 FPS. For that frame, it's, I guess, 10? I guess? Anyway, and that obviously throws your FPS like way in the gutter. There are debatably better ways to do that. I think this is the easiest and most efficient way to do hit stop. And other ways can lead you into some nasty traps if you're not careful. If you guys will recall, if anybody played Nuclear Throne way back in the day, there was a few builds where, like, let's say you were melting and you were blowing up a bunch of bodies, or particularly that dog that shoots all the bullets everywhere, when he died, like, the game would hang for, like, a few seconds, and you'd be like, oh my god, it's crashing, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it would pop back up like nothing happened. That's because they were using sleep timers, and they were just using them, like, straight up additively. So when melting blows up, like, 12 bodies, it would, like, okay, sleep for, like, you know, 3 or 4 seconds. It was crazy. Setting your room speed to 6, like I said, it's definitely a poor man's hit stop. It's easier to do than managing sleep or whatever else. And honestly, I don't think the sleep function even exists in GameMaker Studio 2 because it gets flagged as malicious by a lot of like anti-malware kind of things. Anyway, point is my overall FPS is much better than it was, and I don't know what's causing that 42. Maybe there's a big chain reaction, I don't know. Maybe I should just watch the video, because it's much easier to figure out when a 42 happens when I have the power of freeze frame than it is when I'm trying to blow a bunch of missiles up, right? Well, we'll have to watch out for those fast missiles. So I didn't get rid of all of the poofs, right? You can't get rid of all of the poofs because you can't check collision with particles. You just can't do it, right? Well, I mean, you can do it, but it's more intensive than just using the poofs in the first place, right? So why would you bother? So all of my fast missiles and actually when I like this guy, his sides fly off, those all still use poofs because that's not like a big enough concerted thing to build a particle system around, but I do need it to have collision, and I do need it to chain react with the missiles. So the poofs aren't completely gone, but like I said, my instance max went from like 1500 to like 150 or so. Anyway, the new like flip around, the new brake makes killing these guys a lot more fun than they used to be. Of course, used to be that they had a much tighter turning radius, and you could just essentially fly in a circle around them and just hit them twice, and that wasn't very much fun. But this sort of like hit, flip, yeah, it's much more I don't know, twitch. It's very satisfying to that kind of like twitch reflex part of your brain. Yeah, I don't know. Might just be too many particles, in which case I can work with that, you know, that's easy. Just turn them down a little bit. Oh, yeah, so that's just a building gun. There's nothing to do with that. If you noticed real quick, it's gone now, because I already killed it. If a missile is going towards a building that is already destroyed, they turn green. I'm thinking about doing away with that, right? Like, to an extent, it's fair, right? Like, if a missile's like here and decides it's going to go here, I mean, it's too late. You can't react to that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm thinking if a missile's above a certain Y coordinate, you know, if it's high enough in the air, it ought to be able to just find a new target. That's not that big a deal. So I might do that in the future. And actually, maybe I'll make that something that missiles theoretically can do, but can't actually do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, give it a variable. That way, you know, I can ratchet things up in the third act of the game and say, like, oh, they've improved their guidance systems or whatever. So these kinetic missiles, I don't know if they were in the last video. I know I haven't made a video of their special fancy explosion thing, so we'll talk about them now. They have special kinetic armor plating, so they're completely immune to explosions. But not only are they completely immune to explosions, but explosions make them faster. You hit them with your sword, and they will die. When you hit them with their sword, based on whatever direction you're pointed when you hit them with your sword, they will send off 3 of their armor plates, spiraling for a little bit, and then those armor plates explode. Like that. Now, I'm thinking about making... So currently those armor plates aren't collidable objects, like they can fly through missiles and not set them off. I'm thinking about changing that, mostly because when there's a lot of these kinetic missiles and a lot of things that explode big, like these big fat bombs, like they can get up going at really respectable speed and become really hard to deal with. So I'm thinking if the plates, you know, a plate spinning off, hitting something, that's as good as a sword, right? I mean, at the very least, I should make the kinetic plates, you know, collide with the kinetic missiles. And that'd make them a little... There's that little fast missile poof ball I was talking about that's still made out of poofs. I don't even know what the thing is on this level. Oh, this is just kinetic missiles and armored missiles, which is a pretty rough duo. I actually just had to adjust the mix of missiles allowed on this level because it was just kind of hard. It was really hard. Like I don't know. I'm not saying the game should be easy, but like if I, playing the level over and over again, couldn't get 3 stars on it, and, you know, I'm the guy who made the game, right? It's probably too hard. How adjusting the mix on all of this works, by the way, is at the start of the level, I essentially just have a list data structure that has all the different kinds of missiles in the list. And so if you just, like, you know, there's too many kinetic missiles being spawned if there's a fair, even mix, right? So let's, I'm doing terrible. You know, we'll put regular missile in there 2 or 3 times, and that means you'll have just, you know, statistically you should have twice as many normal missiles as kinetic missiles if you put 2 of them in there for every one, right? So that's how you adjust the mix. And that's gonna send him faster. Cool, can I get there? Yep. Okay. Gosh, like I said, I've done this video 3 times now. The first time I had my cursor in the lower right quadrant of the screen. The second time, for whatever reason, my audio just tripped out. It got really bad. And so this is... Ooh! Barely. 3rd time's the charm. So I don't even know what I've actually talked about so far. I don't know what I've talked about this video. I don't know what I've talked about the last videos. I really hope we hit level 7 soon so I could talk about something new because I'm running out of stuff. There we go. Level 7. So... the aliens, who are sending all these missiles down at Earth, have realized that someone is thwarting their plans, and so they have put out a bunch of anti-ninja countermeasures. And this is the first one. It is a jammer. And so what it does is every missile within 1,000 pixels of it doesn't show up on your radar. And you have to use the static effect, which, while a jammer exists, it draws static over the front of the screen. At, like, I think it's like 0.1 alpha, and then the closer you get, it goes up to, I think, a max of 0.4. And that lets you know you're jammed, and it lets you kind of track down, because the jammer itself doesn't show up on the radar either. I mean, obviously. It's going to make it so that... I'm not going to get that. If it's going to make it so that missiles can't show up, obviously it's not going to show up, right? That's like... That wouldn't make any sense. I'm going to lose that building too. Yeah, these couple of jammer levels are really hard compared to other levels. Really kind of got to keep your head about you. I'm not sure if it's showing up. Occasionally it pulses out like a ring. That is also a particle. But it kind of helps you track down where it's coming from. Oh, man. Man. Oof. Sorry, guys. My commentary's gone to crap. Like I said, it's like 25 minutes of gameplay if I can do everything right. I don't want to have to repeat any levels. This is already going to be a long video. So yeah, that's the jammer. And the jammer is set up in such a way because... So obviously how it works and how it jams and draws all the static based on your distance to it. I didn't want there to be more than one missile, or more than one jammer at a time. So what happens is if there's already a jammer and the game wants to spawn another one, ooh, dang. It instead spawns a regular, normal run-of-the-mill missile. Oh, good. Shoo. I don't know if you guys recall, missiles do different hit points worth of damage, so that fast missile I missed earlier, oh man, it's not enough to take down a whole building on its own. These jammers are also, like, really fast. I might... Okay, here's something to talk about. Let's talk about optimal play, right? This is something that a lot of game designers fall into this trap, right? Where they play the game how they think it should be played. You know, they test the game how they think it should be played. Oof. And so they don't really get into thinking of like, okay, what's optimal play for my game? Because that's really what's going to dictate how players play your game. I fall into this trap. Everybody falls into this trap. So it's something just to be aware of. Here's how optimal play for this game works. You start up here, right? because that's where the missiles spawn. And then you can tell how well you're doing in any particular level by how high you are, right? So the jammer is good because it pulls you down to the ground, right? The closer you are to the ground, I'm not going to get that one either. Closer to the art of the ground, the less time you've got to react to incoming missiles, and the harder it becomes to like kind of prioritize what your targets are, right? Oh, I've also redone my my radar. You guys can't tell from it used to just be like 200 pixels away from you. There would just be like a blob of radar. It was a mess. Now it's sort of in an oval around you, and they kind of get closer. I kind of probably got to change the speed at which they get closer to you. Anyway, so that's optimal play, right? Is you start out up here because this gives you the most time. This is where the missiles spawn at. If you can hit them while they're clustered up, you know, it's just optimal to be up there. So, that's a good showcase. So that's the new enemy, EMP bomb. If you hit it with your sword, it turns your engines off for like 3 seconds. And you can turn your engines back on by frantically mashing down on the boost button. Anyway, once you've figured out optimal play for your game, one of the things you should do then is ask yourself directly, how do I mix this up, right? How do I change optimal play? Either, like, if you don't like optimal play for your game, you should flat out be like, okay, how do I make that not optimal, right? Because I would prefer my game be played in a different way. But if you're okay with, like, I'm okay, like, this, people should want to gravitate towards the top of the screen. That just makes sense for how the game works, right? In the original missile command, that's where you'd want to send your early missiles, right? You should find ways to mix that up. And so the jammer kind of mixes that up because the jammer is very fast and flies, like straight down to like the, you know, like the third point of the map. I think it'll choose between 1/3 or 2/3 heights. Right? And so it forces you down. Another thing I'm thinking about is like a Sidewinder missile, and it would spawn from off the sides of the screens rather than the top, and it would fly, like, let's say it was targeting this building. It would start at the other end of the screen, and it would fly just straight parallel to the ground until it's directly over its target, and then it would fly, you know, like straight down. And so that's another thing that would, you know, changes, you know, optimal play. Like, optimal play still want to keep as much altitude as possible, but, you know, instead, like, oh, there's these Sidewinders, I got to duck down for them. Oh, there's this jammer, I got to keep diving down. You know, just ways to mix it up. As for these EMP bombs, which I probably should have been talking about a long time ago, it's, you know, Jetpack Ninja, Fruit Ninja, I figure the same sort of design philosophy applies to both, right? You can't be like, here's a bunch of stuff, hit it with your sword, and then not be like, okay, here's something, don't hit it with your sword. So that's their shtick. And they do 0 damage to buildings. You're free to just let them fall all the way to the bottom. But if you hit them with your sword, they'll EMP. If you hit them with an explosion, I think they chain react. I'm not sure if they actually create an explosion of their own or if they just create puff balls that looks like a little bit of a poof. I'm thinking I'm going to make them cause an actual big explosion if you can chain react them. Anyway, the big challenge of this is obviously, okay, let's say I kill every missile and there's still EMP missiles. Like, I've got several on their way towards the ground right now, right? It used to just be, okay, now wait until that missile hits the ground. Okay, now next wave or level over. So I had to go through and code, and so now they're checking, hey, is the only thing left EMP missiles? Okay, good. Then just blow them up. Nobody wants to wait around for that. This is my favorite anti-ninja countermeasure. This is the Air to Ninja missile. I believe it's the world's first. I'm a trendsetter. So I haven't let it hit me yet. I should let one hit me. Probably early on in the next wave, because this wave's already getting really hectic. If it hits you, it EMPs you. Oh, gosh. if it doesn't... Okay, so if it hits you, it EMPs you. If you cut off your engines at the last second, because it's a heat-seeking missile, right? So I'll let this one hit me. Boop. So same thing. It cuts your engines. You have to frantically mash the button. There you go. Okay. Frantically mash the button to get your engines on. You know the drill. If you cut your engines into a break, since it's heat-seeking, like in the last second, like it has to be on the screen, I think it has to be within 300 pixels of you. If you've got your brake on, it freaks out its targeting and it just self-destructs. And when it self-destructs, it keeps going the direction and speed it was going when it was told to self-destruct. And it blows up 3 more times. Which is... I think I got a pretty good capture of that time. So you can lead it into big packs of missiles and create some pretty big chain reactions that way. So that's why it's my favorite, is that it keeps you on your toes. It's not a normal missile like the EMP missile raining down from the sky or whatever. It's just something you've got to keep track of. You've got to keep track of this lock-on and then kind of keep track on, like, it's that big red triangle is pretty distinct, you know? You can kill it with your sword. It's just extremely difficult to do so. I mean, your timing on that is pretty slim because you're usually moving about 10 pixels a frame. It moves like 16. For reference, when you boost, you're moving 20. So you can outrun it. Obviously not indefinitely because, I mean, you know, that's your turn speed when you're boosting. So, I mean, that's not going to work, right? You're gonna have to stop eventually. Oh, hilarious. That one didn't even get on screen because I was right by where he was supposed to spawn. Now, they're supposed to spawn from the far edge of the map. Like, when you're locked, they're supposed to... Oh, gosh. They're supposed to immediately move to the other end of the map and spawn from there. I'm not sure if you guys can really tell what it looks like. I'm not going to make it. Oh, that would have been really slick if I pulled off both of those. But it looks kind of like a miniature... Oh, my God. Oh, really screwed that one up. Oh, well. Maybe I'll try to fly away from it? Oh, well. It looks like a miniature kinetic missile. It is also immune to explosions. With like a weird bladed head on it. I'm thinking I might make not the explosions it causes. But the weird bladed head currently doesn't collide with anything. I might make the bladed head be another thing that could collide with the kinetic missiles and blow them up. I just think it sounds cool. Also, I mean, if you can aim one of those things into a kinetic missile, you deserve it. Right? It's rough. I think that's the last level, which is good because, like I said, it's third time recording this. I've been at this for a while, and we're at, like, what, 23 minutes already? So that's week 2 of my devlog. I think we're on day 11 of Devtober because it didn't line up, like, you know, Monday to Monday or anything like that. I think we started on a Wednesday. Anyway... that's Ninjectory. I've got some more things that I have done. So now I've got this object where every time you encounter a new missile, it keeps track of it, whether you've encountered a missile or not. And that works, and that is saved and loaded currently. And that is so, you know, like the EMP missile or like the air to ninja missile, those are complicated, right? Like, oh, this thing's going to come at you, and it's going to hit you and EMP you unless you turn your engines off at the last second. I can't expect a player to figure that out on their own, right? So obviously, every missile needs a briefing. Like, here's this missile, this is what it does. You know, like, oh, here's a fast missile. It's really fast. It's got a lot of fuel, but it doesn't have a lot of payload, so it can't take a building down entirely by itself. That's important information for my player to know, and I need a briefing to tell them that. All of that works. I haven't come up with this system because obviously I need a system where I'm thinking like probably just be a bunch of buildings whipping past real fast and like the ninja here and I'll put this overlay of like, a schematic of the missile and then an exploded image of the missile. I mean exploded in the technical drawing sense, not exploded in the things explode sense. I mean, it's a game full of missiles. I got to be specific. And then, like dialogue coming from like, Barry or Barry's the head of the Secret Service, by the way. He's an important person in the story, like explaining to you, like, oh, here's this missile coming up and hopefully some witty dialogue. And then you'll go in. And that object exists because I could just put that briefing as a hard-coded thing at the beginning of a level, but I don't know about you, but personally, if I've seen a briefing like that, I've seen it. I don't need you to explain to me how an EMP missile works every time I play that level. So I want to check that thing off, right? So that way if you play the level again, you don't have to watch the cutscene. So that exists. It's in game. I'm probably going to do the architecture for all of that, the briefing system, next week, because I feel it's a super important part of getting this game playtestable. And then at that point, I'll probably be reaching out and being like, hey, does anybody want to playtest my crappy Devtober game? Let's see, what else did I do this week? It's mostly just particles and that, and then fine-tuning my spawning algorithms and getting 12 levels that are a pretty good mix of introducing things. Obviously, I'm aiming for like a 40-level game. These missiles are introduced way too quickly in 12 levels. You'd be spaced out a bit more. You'd have a bit more time as a player to be like, okay, I think I understand how so-and-so missile works. Anyway, that's Ninjectory. That's my Devtober project. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.